Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bell to Bell. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, and we got a phenomenal show for you folks today. Obviously, it is a big week in professional wrestling as we just witnessed the final match in the career of John Cena. And where does that leave everything in WWE? Where does that leave Gunther? Where does that leave the rest of the Monday Night Raw roster? Where does it just leave wrestling in general? We'll talk about all of that and more on today's episode. We also have to talk about Austin Theory because Austin Theory is the masked man that has been aiding the Vision since Survivor Series War Games. What are his motivations? Is he part of the Vision? Is he acting on his own? There's a lot to get into with all of that because wrestling right now is as good as it's been in a very long time. But before we get started, if you enjoy this content, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe at Nick Belsky on YouTube. If you prefer an audio version, you can find us at Bell to Bell on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There's only one place to start today's episode, and that's what we saw on Saturday night's main event. I think the show in general was perfectly constructed. I couldn't think of a better 2-hour send-off for John Cena than what we saw on Saturday night. It was fun. There was a touch of nostalgia throughout the night, not just with the John Cena stuff, but getting a lot of nostalgia from having AJ Styles on the card. Getting a lot of nostalgia. I feel like every time we watch Cody Rhodes wrestle, there's always a little bit of nostalgia that comes up. He has that throwback feel to him as well. And then, of course, the fact that it's Saturday night's main event, you got the tri-colored ropes. There is a little bit of nostalgia that just comes with it in general. But it was a lot of fun, too. It was entertaining. The NXT stars showed up and showed out. John Cena wanted to be able to use that night to put a spotlight on NXT stars. And that's only half the equation, though. The other half is, can those NXT stars step up and prove worthy of the spotlight? And I think they did. Obafemi, as we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, had a great showing against the WWE champion Cody Rhodes. I'm upset that it didn't come down to an actual finish, that Drew McIntyre had to get himself involved. I understand the reasoning behind it, but man, I just wanted to see who would get the better of that. That's a match we will definitely be getting in the future, and I'm looking forward to whenever it does happen. Sol Ruca getting the win over Bayley was huge, and I loved the way that they were able to do it, that Sol hits the Soul Snatcher, which is still a ridiculously fun move to see executed, but the veteran in Bayley is lying in wait and saying, okay, you know what I can do? I can still force the pin and try to get one up on you, but hey, listen, Sol Ruca, while she might be the rookie, she's seen that play before. So I thought that was a great finish. And then when I talk about fun, the tag match between the Raw Tag Champs, Dragon Lee, and AJ Styles. I can't remember if they're World or if they're WWE. It's all jumbled up since they gave them the new ones. I love the design of the belts, but I just can't remember. I think it's the World Tag Team Championships. But the match that they had with Javon Evans and Leon Slater, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better 3 matches leading up to what we saw in the main event. And it's funny, and I was sitting there on Saturday night watching this, and I know leading into this, John Cena on every podcast, and he went on at least 20 in the 2 weeks leading up to this event. On every podcast that he went on to, when they asked about this card, he said multiple times, non-canon exhibition matches, which means storyline wasn't supposed to be involved in any of them. Now, they did obviously use that in the opening match with Drew McIntyre, but for the most part, and some people this might rub the wrong way, I was watching it on Saturday and I thought to myself, it's kind of like an AEW show. Storyline takes a back seat. It's all about the in-ring ability. And there are positives to that, for sure. Like I said, this was a perfectly constructed show. Sometimes in AEW, the storyline takes too much of a backseat. That's my personal opinion. But on a night like Saturday night, it worked for WWE because storyline was put on hold for most of the night, except for two things, except for Drew McIntyre and except for the main event, because that was a main event for the ages, not a technical masterclass. It's not going to be a match that you watch again and again simply because it's, it's not a Ricochet versus Will Ospreay circa, what was that, 2018 match. It's not, the women's triple threat from WrestleMania 41, where you just watch it and you're like, man, every move was executed to perfection, because there wasn't a lot of moves. There wasn't. This was Gunther being absolutely punishing and brutal with chops and clotheslines and just sucking the life out of John Cena with a sleeper hold. And it was John Cena bouncing back, AAing Gunther through the table, avalanche AAing Gunther, doing the I don't know, off the top rope. I'm blanking on the name of the move, but the leg drop from the top rope. It was vintage John Cena. He was showing his resilience as he always did. And for the majority of that match, he was what he had been for the previous 20 years of his career. He was the epitome of never give up. The crowd was electric. It felt like, okay, maybe, just maybe, he walks away with the win. I was firmly in the camp of it's John Cena. He is going to want to go out on his back because he comes from that school of thinking. He always has, and he always will. So I thought going in, okay, it's going to be a good match. They're going to put on a good show, but it felt like going in, it felt like Gunther had to win. Like he came back for this specific moment. He was off of television. He was dealing with an injury, and he came back announced as a member of the Last Time Is Now tournament. He came back specifically for this moment. So it was a great match. Anticipation was building. Even I got to the point where I said, you know what? Screw logic. John Cena's going to win this thing. And it built and it built and it built, and the crowd got louder and louder and louder, chanting, Super Cena, chanting, don't give up, don't give up. And then it all stopped in an instant. And the air was sucked out of Capital One Arena. Cena smiles, almost as to say, I can finally rest. And for the first time in his career, he taps out. Gunther, shocked at what had occurred, even though he had prophesized that he was going to make John Cena give up, was still shocked that he actually accomplished the feat. Now, this is obviously had a lot of heavy discourse surrounding it. A lot of people not happy about it in the arena, out of the arena, on the internet, everywhere. There's a lot of people that don't like the fact that John Cena didn't go out on his back, but went out tapping out. He didn't get pinned for the 1, 2, 3. He tapped out. He gave up. And I've been searching for the words leading up to this recording that describe how I felt about it, because I wasn't upset about it. Did I want John Cena to win? Yeah, I would have loved to see John Cena win. And honestly, I would have loved to see that crowd reaction if he got the 1, 2, 3, or even better, if he made Gunther tap. Would have absolutely loved it. But I think when you walk away from it and you look at the way that it all went down, it was the perfect ending. And the smile and the tap and everybody being upset about it. Again, I struggle to find and articulate the perfect words for it, but I saw somebody who did, and I will definitely share, because I think this is a great way to look at it. This is from Matt Hardy. Yeah, that Matt Hardy said, John found solace in finally being able to quit. Hence the smirk. In his mind, he didn't tap out. he clocked out and was walking away from the burden of being the face and the flag bearer of WWE. John Cena finally let go. It's Iron Man in Avengers Endgame. It's, I've done my job, I've given you my all, and now it's time for me to rest. That's what the end of Saturday night's main event was. And I could not think of a better way for that to go out. Because that matched with what we saw after that, the video package that brought a tear to my eye, leaving his shoes and his wristbands in the middle of the ring with all the superstars surrounding him, and then walking down that aisle saying straight to Stu for one final time, "Thank you for allowing me to serve you all these years," and then turning and walking out of the arena. That was a great ending for John Cena. People might be angry at it, and I understand. You want to see the good guy win. But it doesn't always happen like that. And instead, when one door closes, another one opens, and the door is wide open for Gunther. Because WWE, in doing that, in doing what we saw them do on Saturday night, they made a monster in Gunther. It's very similar, and I've seen countless other wrestling opinionists say this. Sam Roberts on Not Sam Wrestling. I believe Chris Van Vliet said it. But it's very similar to Brock Lesnar beating The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania 30. It is that level of gifting somebody this moment. But there's a massive difference between what they did back at Mania 30 for Brock Lesnar and what they just did for Gunther at Saturday night's main event. Brock Lesnar at that point in time was an attraction. He was will come in every couple of months, have a big 5-minute match, destroy somebody. It ended up being John Cena later that year at SummerSlam, and walk away. Then he'd come in, main event of WrestleMania, maybe 12 minutes, and go away. The difference here is you have given a similar moment, a similar rub to Gunther, but he'll be around week after week after week after week. And he can really, at this point, do whatever he wants. He could go after titles if he wants. He just retired John frickin' Cena. The guy that has been called for the last 365 days the GOAT of professional wrestling, the never seen 17, and he retired him. Not only that, he made him give up the one thing he said he would never do. So, yeah, Gunther can probably call his shot for a world title whenever he wants to. But he might not need it right now. Because, as we saw on Monday Night Raw, superstars are lining up just to scowl at him. R-Truth called him trash. And the most interesting of all is Gunther, after being berated by Raw General Manager Adam Pearce, who I'm sure that man's cardiologist is just not happy with him whatsoever, because he seems like he is yelling at the top of his lungs way more than any human should. After he's verbally berating Gunther says, "All right, I'll leave. That's fine. I did what I wanted to do. I took my victory lap. I gloated. I made everybody in Hershey boo me louder than they've ever booed anybody else before. Yeah, I think I'll go back to the hotel, maybe even just go get on a plane and head home." But before he could do that, who's waiting for him at his car but AJ Styles? Somebody who has been getting a bigger and bigger role on Monday Night Raw for the past 3 or 4 months at this point. AJ Styles is the last one to greet Gunther, and the most significant person to go face-to-face with Gunther on Monday Night Raw. So there's a lot of different directions that he could go in, and it doesn't have to be a title. He feels like he is starting to enter that rarefied air. That air that you see a guy like a CM Punk, who, yeah, right now he has a title, but does he need a title? No. We saw that between him and Drew McIntyre. They didn't need a title to be the main event. Roman Reigns hasn't even had a title match since WrestleMania 40. Doesn't need it. Gunther's not quite to a Roman Reigns or a CM Punk level, but he's starting to get there. He's starting to get onto that level. At the very least, he's looking around the room and seeing what it's like. He can do pretty much whatever he wants right now. And I'm very excited to see what it is, because on Monday Night Raw, we have, as we'll talk about in a couple minutes here, we have CM Punk as the World Heavyweight Champion, and we have Bron Breakker as the number one contender leading into a huge first Monday Night Raw of 2026. But no matter what happens, no matter what comes from that, it feels like if Gunther wants to go for a title, Gunther's going to go for a title. This iteration of Gunther, coming back from injury after losing at SummerSlam, is now 5-0. He ran the gauntlet in the last Time Is Now tournament, and he made John Cena tap out. He is a Brock Lesnar level monster for WWE moving forward. And 2026, we've talked about maybe it's the year of Bron Breakker. Maybe it's the year Roman Reigns gets back on top. Maybe it's just the year that you hope and pray for all that, but as he tends to do, Gunther steps into the picture and ruins your fun. Maybe that's the year that we're looking at on deck in 2026. Another big thing happened on Monday Night Raw, and that is that we finally learned the identity of the mysterious masked figure that took 2 hops, it seemed, to get into the War Games cage, costing CM Punk and the babyface team, and giving the win to the Vision plus 2, plus Brock Lesnar, plus Drew McIntyre. So after weeks of speculation, at the end of Monday Night Raw, we finally get our answer. Who is the masked man? I said on this show right after Survivor Series, it's Austin Theory, and I don't want to hear anything else. Like, you can have your theories, for lack of a better term, but in my soul, I knew that's Austin Theory. I mean, look at the athleticism of the guy that jumped into that cage. It could only be a handful of people. It just felt right that it's Austin Theory. Somebody who, whenever the Vision started to form back on the night after WrestleMania, we saw Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, Bron Breakker, and everybody said, who's next? Who else could join this faction? Austin Theory was one of the names at the top of my list. Now, he is in a Vision adjacent storyline, but we're not exactly sure if he is in the Vision. Now, he was the masked man. He has been helping out both Bron Breakker and Logan Paul, so you'd have to imagine that maybe, just maybe, Paul Heyman has something to do with this. And I'm poor guy. You know, anytime anything nefarious happens, everybody points the finger at Paul Heyman. He just sits there and says, I don't know what you're talking about. He said to Adam Pearce, he's like, I don't know who he is, but I don't really care as long as he's helping me. Right? So it is, it's interesting because we know who, but now we need to know why. And will we find that out next week? I'm not sure. Maybe this is something that he continues to be mysterious even without the mask. Who knows what this new version of Austin Theory has in store for us. But I do think that if he does indeed join the Vision and that becomes a 4-person group, it's a good match. He's still very young at only 28 years old. He is supremely talented. I mean, look at that athletic ability that we saw at Survivor Series. I know that some people say it could be a different person in the mask. They could have put anybody in that mask. Well, I think watching that and knowing what we know about Austin Theory, that was Austin Theory in the cage at War Games. So he's a guy that's supremely talented and has been for some time, but he's also somebody who's been humbled by this business. And I think that is an important piece to all of this. That to be in this spot, you have to have kind of gone through it a little bit. To be the guy that steps in next to Bronson Reed and Logan Paul and Bron Breakker, having that history, having that experience behind you of being humbled by this business, of being told that you're the next great one and then it just not panning out. I think that is very important and a very big piece of the story to this version of Austin Theory. He was told that he was going to be the guy. And when he had an opportunity to be the guy, he got humbled by John Cena at WrestleMania. Right? He got schooled on the mic. He had a match against John Cena one-on-one at WrestleMania 39, and guess what? It was a forgettable match for a lot of people. And then he fades back, becomes part of a tag team. I mean, it's really all. And again, this might be just the show of parallels, right? Because I compared Gunther's win over John Cena to Brock Lesnar's victory over The Undertaker at WrestleMania. Well, I think this version of Austin Theory and just his path to this point is eerily similar to what we've seen in the story of Drew McIntyre. Insanely athletic freak of a human being. Terrific presentation, aka he's jacked beyond belief. Handpicked by a certain someone. And because of that, probably pushed prematurely. Transitioned into a goofy role. For Drew McIntyre, it was 3MB, something that, created some great moments and great friends for Drew McIntyre, but didn't put him in the position to succeed and push him forward to where he is today. He had to go do that on his own. Fortunately for Theory, he didn't have to do that on his own. Now, the injury played a big role in this, and you never want to be injured, but it gave an opportunity for him and Grayson Waller to go their separate ways. And Grayson's doing great things with the New Day. Very entertaining on television almost every single week. Now's the time for Austin Theory to transition out of that goofy role and have his restart. And yes, it's not a carbon copy because Drew McIntyre had to go do it on his own outside of WWE and build himself up. That way he could re-enter as a main event player. This is a chance for Austin Theory to maybe not restart as a main event player, but restart from a much better foundation to build himself to what WWE has wanted him to be for a very long time. There's a chance that by the end of 2026, he's neck and neck with Bron Breakker when we're talking about the future of the industry. And boy, wouldn't that be an interesting story. That the Vision brings in Austin Theory thinking, okay, well, maybe he's a good tag partner for Bronson Reed. Maybe him and Logan Paul can tag together. Maybe they can work together to get the Intercontinental Championship for the Vision. And by the end of the year, it's undeniable that, oh, okay, he's not on that level. He's a level above. He's neck and neck with Bron Breakker. I mean, maybe it's a little bit too copy-paste from what we saw this year with Seth Rollins being that top guy, Bron Breakker being a step below, and then him kind of outgrowing that from right underneath Seth's feet. Maybe it's a little too similar, but hey, deja vu sometimes works in professional wrestling. So I think that there is a lot of different creative ways that we could go with Austin Theory, whether he's part of the Vision or not. But I'm excited that we now know for a fact. I was very confident, like 90% confident, not to toot my own horn, but, gonna do it a little bit. I was 90% confident it was Austin Theory. But now that we know it is for a fact Austin Theory, where do we go from here? You got 3 big shows coming up that you're kind of building to almost simultaneously. You have the 1-year anniversary of Raw on Netflix on January 5th. You have a Saturday night's main event a couple of weeks later, and the following week you have the Royal Rumble. So you essentially have 3 shows that you're starting to build towards. Where does Austin Theory fit into all this now that he is both returned and unmasked as the mysterious man that has been helping out the Vision? Should be a lot of fun to watch. Let's talk a little bit here about talent, because there is a lot of talent in the WWE. But right now, I feel like there's a little bit of a disparity in the shows. It feels like SmackDown is starting to fall behind Raw a little too much. Obviously, WWE values its partnership with Netflix, and they have pushed a lot of the product towards the Monday Night Raw brand. And that's understandable. That's a lot of money that Netflix is forking over. And not to mention the fact that internationally, they're also getting it for SmackDown as well, but just not in the States. But at the end of the day, it feels like overall, no matter the reasons, that Friday Night SmackDown is just kind of a step behind Monday Night Raw. And I think the perfect example of this is by looking at the current world title feuds. On Monday Night Raw, we are getting, in my opinion, one of the best world title feuds that we have seen in some time in CM Punk versus Bron Breakker. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, it feels like we have drawn out this story. We've drawn out this feud between Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes, and in a way that it's already kind of lost its steam. And I understand. This has been going on since September. So this is in the midst of a 3-month storyline. But let's not act like the CM Punk Bron Breakker storyline didn't start in October when Seth Rollins got injured at Crown Jewel, because it did. You look at that, and while, yes, it hasn't been specifically outlined, CM Punk versus Bron Breakker, for very long. That came about directly after Survivor Series War Games, the weekend after Thanksgiving. But this storyline has been building since October, because when Rollins went down with injury, Bron Breakker speared him through the mat. Bronson Reed hit him with tsunami after tsunami, and Seth Rollins was no more. What did Bron Breakker do with the title? He took it for himself. He said, all right, this is mine now. It's just a matter of the general manager and the organization agreeing that it is mine now, because it is. He wore it out of the ring that night. He wore it back into the ring the following Monday, so he had the title for a week. And then Adam Pearce is like, it's not how this works, dude. We have a number one contender, and his name's CM Punk. We're going to find another one. And you know what? Because of what you did, because you're the reason this title is vacated, you're not in the number one contenders battle royal. So, okay, Bron Breakker intentionally kept away from the number one contender, CM Punk. Fast forward to Saturday night's main event, 2 SNMEs ago, CM Punk wins the world title. Okay, Bron Breakker doesn't interfere at all in that match. Why? Because Paul Heyman says no matter who comes out of that match on Sunday, you can take them out. So again, building to this. And then War Games happens. Bron Breakker pins CM Punk. All of a sudden, the confrontation comes to a head. Bron Breakker gets the matchup against Punk on Monday Night Raw on January 5th. This has been 2 months in the making, and yet they haven't had a one-on-one match yet. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, the reason this feud feels a little stale is because they've already had 3 title matches. Add on the fact that there's War Games and the fact that, listen, the work being done by both Bron Breakker and CM Punk on the microphone is hard for anybody to keep up with. Bron Breakker is having breakout moment after breakout moment on the microphone. Meanwhile, CM Punk cut his best promo since coming back to WWE on Bron Breakker earlier this week. It's hard for anybody to keep up with. But again, why is Cody so mad at Drew again? I understand 3 months ago, he tried to kick his head through a table, or he did kick his head through a table, put him on the shelf, but Cody's beaten him 3 times. He's retained 3 times. He screwed Drew over. So I understand that. And then Cody got mad again. It's coming back to me now because it's been such a long story that you get lost in a lot of these instances. I mean, there's a reason that at Saturday night's main event, it was great to see Obafemi versus Cody Rhodes. The Friday night before that, it was great in the ring to see Obafemi versus Cody Rhodes in a promo battle because there is a lack of significant storytelling. And I think that is something that we've seen throughout Friday Night SmackDown for the better part of the last couple of months. It's a lack of significant storytelling, and it's repetitive in themes. we've seen a very similar story be told between Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre week after week after week. But here's the thing. It's not anything to do with talent. Maybe it's not as deep as the Monday Night Raw roster over on SmackDown, but the talent is there. I mean, Solo Sikoa and Carmelo Hayes capitalize on the momentum that they have from the John Cena tournament. Carmelo Hayes got a huge reaction last week on Friday Night SmackDown. Solo Sikoa has looked as strong as he has looked in a long time during that tournament. Plus, he was the sole survivor in the traditional Survivor Series tag match on that Friday Night SmackDown. Rey Fenix and Sami Zayn are great pieces. Utilize them more. Heel Jade Cargill has been great. Watching her just mow down opponents is interesting. Now, the one thing I'd like to see there is more significant opponents appearing. Yes, Tiffany is that, and when she comes back, that's going to be a very big confrontation. Maybe once Bianca Belair comes back, she comes to Friday Night SmackDown, and that's a big confrontation. But again, those are two pieces that, as of this current moment, are not actively on the show week after week. The tag division on Friday is more stacked than the tag division on Monday, and yet the tag division on Monday is getting more airtime, is getting more opportunity, and is also being featured on big PLEs and big cards like the Saturday night's main event for John Cena. The tag division is stacked over there. The Wyatts, the MFTs, the Motor City Machine Guns. It goes on and on and on. DIY. I mean, there's so much Street Profits. There's so much talent on Friday Night SmackDown. You just need to start utilizing them a little bit better. You need to put a little bit more of the Monday Night Raw type of storytelling on Friday Night SmackDown. I think that's what's missing. And also, if you want to make it deeper, there is a crop of NXT call-ups that I think fit perfectly into SmackDown. Obafemi. I'd love to see him on the same roster as Cody Rhodes. I'd love to see him become a big player on Friday Night SmackDown. Trick Williams is a guy that, I'm not sure where he's going to end up, but he could fit on Friday Night SmackDown. Ricky Saints on Friday nights. You're telling me a heel Ricky Saints joining a brand that is led by a baby-faced Cody Rhodes wouldn't be an interesting confrontation? And then Ethan Page screams savior of SmackDown to me. That seems like exactly what that show is missing. Somebody that can be that good on the mic and that good in the ring. I think that's somebody that SmackDown desperately needs. So there's plenty of ways to get that back to level with Monday Night Raw. I'm just hoping that we see that at the beginning of 2026. Again, this is not a criticism of the talent over there. It's a criticism of the storytelling, because it feels like there's just a little bit more that gets put into Monday Night Raw. And that's just my personal opinion. You might have a different one, but it feels like, the storytelling isn't doing the talent justice over there. And I'm hoping that's something that changes here in the new year. To close out this show, let's talk a little bit about the John Cena retirement tour at large. It's now over. 36 dates, I believe. 18 matches where he only really lost, if you include the Royal Rumble, I think he only lost 5 matches? Possibly. Maybe 6. I think he might have lost the tag match with Logan Paul. But you look at what John Cena accomplished on his retirement tour. He won the Elimination Chamber match. He won his 17th world title, record-breaking, never seen 17, in the main event of WrestleMania. He won the Intercontinental Championship, becoming a why can't I think of the word? Why can't I think of the term? A Grand Slam champion. I was thinking world champion. I'm like, that's not the word. He was world champion for a large portion of this year, but he became a Grand Slam champion when he won the Intercontinental Championship. He put together some all-time performances. Look at his match with Cody at SummerSlam. Look at his match with AJ Styles at Crown Jewel. And on top of the all-time matches, he put together a couple really solid matches outside of that. Logan Paul at Clash in Paris. I think a lot of people upon rewatch will notice that, hey, Logan Paul and John Cena one-on-one was one of the best matches of John Cena's retirement year, and that's saying something. John Cena, Sami Zayn in the US Open Challenge was a really good match. And yes, whether you want to believe it or not, John Cena versus Gunther at Saturday night's main event was a very good match. It might be considered an all-time match because of the moment and what it meant and what it was, but I think bell to bell, I'd put it in a very good category. So outside of all of that, the accolades, the matches, he produced some insane moments too. And if you know anything about John Cena, you know he's all about making moments. In his movie career, in life in general, in every essence of his being, John Cena is a moment maker. Winning the Elimination Chamber was one of them. 100%. The pipe bomb turned into Thugonomics promo back and forth with CM Punk. Those were moments. I mean, you will remember where you were when you heard Word Life and CM Punk come out in Saudi Arabia and rap against John Cena. The return of Ron Killings was a huge moment that everybody was on their feet for. That's a moment made by John Cena. Who else could turn R-Truth, who is a beloved member of that roster, both behind the scenes and in the fan base, who would have ever thought that he would be that level of star at this point in his career, that he would have that level of a moment? It's because of John Cena. Randy Orton RKOing John Cena the night after WrestleMania, sneaking up behind him. That's a moment. And of course, the moment of all moments, and everyone agrees, the heel turn itself at Elimination Chamber is the moment of the year. Say what you want about the follow-up. We'll talk about it in a minute. But the moment that John Cena changed his facial expression as The Rock slid his fingers across his throat, it was the moment of the year. So when you talk about the John Cena retirement tour, some may say, yeah, it fell short of expectations. Some may say, yeah, it was nowhere close to expectations. I look at it and I say, it was a year well spent watching professional wrestling. But let's dissect it a little bit more. The heel run itself, like I mentioned, everyone agrees the heel turn itself was great. It was fantastic. At the moment, I was still sitting there saying, why is Travis Scott in the corner? It doesn't make much sense. And of course, the follow-up is what the follow-up was. But overall, you look at the moment, Cody Rhodes, John Cena, The Rock, in the ring doing what they did at Elimination Chamber. It's a moment to behold. It's a moment of moments. It's something that will forever live in the zeitgeist of professional wrestling fandom. The follow-up, here's where I think my opinion differs from the general public. The heel run was miles better than people are giving it credit for. The only issue with the heel run is a large portion of it, time-wise, was taken up by the WrestleMania feud. And that is the feud that fell short because of the match itself. Right? Some of the promos in there were good. Especially once Cody Rhodes finally got through to John Cena as saying, hey, you should take me pretty seriously. And John Cena turned his anger away from the fans and onto Cody Rhodes. Those were some of the better promos of the year. The problem was the payoff at WrestleMania was not what everybody wanted it to be. It was night 2 of a pretty stacked WrestleMania card, and that main event didn't meet expectations. And as John Cena has mentioned on several shows and several podcasts over the last couple of weeks, that was because that wasn't the payoff to the storyline. The payoff was at SummerSlam. That was the beginning still of the story between John Cena and Cody Rhodes. But I will agree, that WrestleMania main event left me wanting more. But if you get beyond that, the run itself was good. The feud with Randy Orton, leading into Randy taking on Cena in St. Louis was really good. The promos back and forth were really good. The match itself was really good up until when? The end. And why? Because the heel, John Cena, took the easy way out. If that's what you're docking points for, because John Cena used his belt, or John Cena used R-Truth, or John Cena took advantage in certain ways, then you're missing the whole point of professional wrestling. He was the heel. He's supposed to lie, cheat, steal, all of that. Shout out Eddie Guerrero. But that match was good, and that feud was good. The R-Truth program was making magic out of something nobody even expected to see. Was it everything that you had hoped for John Cena's final retirement tour, that you had 2 matches against R-Truth, or including R-Truth? No, nobody expected that. And I think people would say, oh man, I would have rather this or rather that. But what you got was good. Yeah, you could say I would have rather a lot of things, but what you got there was good. And then, as we mentioned, the CM Punk feud, terrific as well. Right? And then it leads to the eventual face turn in the end of this run against Cody Rhodes in what ended up being an all-time match in the payoff to that story that started all the way back at Elimination Chamber. So when I look at John Cena's heel run, I think it is so much better than people give it credit for. The Mania feud fell flat, and that's mainly because of what happened at Mania. There was some good work done leading into that. But it's just, when you can't land the plane at the biggest show of the year, that's what people are going to remember. So I don't blame people for not liking it. I just tend to disagree. I thought it was much better than people give it credit for. That took up a large portion of the year. After that, I've talked about it before. Absolutely loved what we saw with AJ Styles, what we saw with Sami Zayn, what we saw with Logan Paul. That feud was great. What we saw with Dominic Mysterio was great. And it lends me to something that I'm going to close this conversation out with. The only losses that John Cena suffered outside of the Rumble loss. Actually, you know what? Let's include the Rumble loss, because John Cena, while he technically is one of 29 people to lose that match, he was the last person eliminated. And in so, he set up Jey Uso to become a main event player for the entirety of 2025. He put Jey Uso over in that moment. That was the ascension of main event Jey Uso to a guy that people like, to a guy that people now have to respect as a top of the card competitor. Somebody who is going to, and did end up going to WrestleMania and winning a world championship. That all started with John Cena. So he set up main event Jey Uso to take that next level, that next step in his career. Fast forward to SummerSlam and his next loss to Cody Rhodes. At that moment, John Cena crowned Cody as the face of WWE today. He passed the torch, as some would say, to Cody Rhodes. His loss to Brock Lesnar at WrestlePalooza, that remains to be seen whether or not that was the right call, because how do you pay it off? I understand the reasoning behind it. You're building a big bad guy. You're reestablishing the beast in WWE after a long hiatus. And eventually the payoff is he can then pass that on to somebody else, pass off that rub to somebody else. We just have yet to see it. He lost to Dom at Survivor Series. That sets Dom up to take a huge step similar to what we saw from Jey Uso in 2025. That's what that win at Survivor Series is going to do for Dom Mysterio going into 2026 and beyond. And even more so because he is much younger than Jey Uso is. And then his last one to Gunther, as we talked about earlier in the show, Gunther is now a monster in WWE. Everything he did, every time he lost, it was meaningful. When he won, he made history. And along the way, he made memories. I think at the end of the day, if you're looking at this retirement tour and you came up disappointed, it's because you didn't get what you wanted specifically. But I think when you look at what you got, out of this 365-day goodbye to one of the greatest of all time, you got more than you could have asked for from John Cena and from WWE. And for that, I'm very grateful. But that's going to do it for this episode of Bell to Bell. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, if you enjoy this content, to like, share, subscribe to us at Nick Belsky on YouTube. And if you prefer an audio version, you can find us at Bell to Bell on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But that's it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.